So I'm recording a new series, which I'm calling Autumn Harvest, similar to the summer shorts that I was doing, but we're into the autumn now. So again, the whole goal here is to provide a briefer format than my typical teaching lesson, uh, limited to, 20 minutes, something like that. And this one, I'm going to be looking at what I find to be a very interesting subject. Um, to some, it is controversial. To some, you might not be particularly familiar with it. But we're going to be looking at the Shroud of Turin, which some people are speculating that might actually be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ, the cloth that he was wrapped in when he was taken down from the cross and placed into the tomb. So let's take a look at it. So again, we're going to be starting this new series. This is the first one in my Autumn Harvest series. So let's take a look at some information preliminarily about the Shroud of Turin. To many, it is revered. Certainly one of the most revered artifacts of ancient history. And as a result of that, it has been studied over and over again, analyzed, and so forth to try to come upon a consensus in terms of its authenticity. Certainly, the fact that it is associated with, and the speculation is that it is the actual burial cloth of Jesus Christ, has put a major, major spotlight on it, certainly. Skeptics certainly appeared to be supported by some early analysis and findings when they took a piece of the cloth, of the linen, and analyzed it, tried to date it, I believe using carbon-14. And the result came back that it was from the Middle Ages, 12 or 1300s AD, obviously. However, later on it was revealed that the piece of cloth that they used for that analysis came from the outside border, and the linen itself, the burial cloth, was subject to some damage over the years, including being involved in a fire that burned some of it, particularly around the edges. And so it was later repaired, and it was part of that repair border or area that they cut away and analyzed. So the repair was done maybe in the Middle Ages, but the actual origin of the burial cloth itself could not be dated to the Middle Ages. Had to look at some other method to do that. And in fact, more recent studies do place it in the first century via a variety of means, by the way, in terms of the linen that was used, some of the pollen that's in it, and so forth. And so the more recent analysis and conclusions are that it is very likely from the first century. And as we'll see, I'm going to share a video with you that it is very evident that whoever was buried or wrapped in this cloth had been scourged, beaten with whipping, with a cat o' nine tails type of scourging device, which was obviously consistent with what the Romans used in that day. He was beaten. He had a crown of thorns on him. There are wounds on the head that would be consistent with that. And of course, this was not necessarily common with Roman execution. They didn't put crowns of thorns on people, but obviously we do have an account that with this one particular victim, they did. He was crucified by Roman means, meaning he was nailed to the cross. There are wounds in the wrists and the feet, which was consistent again with crucifixion of a first century Roman victim. And then, of course, there is a wound, a lance wound in the side of this victim, which is again very, very consistent with what occurred and what we read in the account in the scripture what happened when Jesus was executed. So I want to share with you a video from an expert to give you some of the details of the things that I've been describing to you.
Has discovered something truly amazing about the Shroud of Turin.
It's almost like that this is a message for later times, that while the shroud could be appreciated in earlier centuries, no one knew it was a photographic negative until photography was invented. No one knew it had three-dimensional information until the people started wanting to interpret the topography of distant planets, and so many other things that science is revealing about this quite extraordinary artifact.
But what mind-blowing detail did Dr. Campbell find that would confirm or reject the Shroud's divine origin? Well, before I reveal that, can you do me a favor and hit the subscribe button so we can reach our crazy goal of 1 million by the end of 2025? Thank you. Now let's get right to it. The Shroud of Turin, the centuries-old artifact, has the faint but distinct picture of a man on it. The shroud underwent damage, including burns from a destructive fire, but its mysteries, inscribed on its 14-foot length, have not been destroyed. Scholars and skeptics are drawn to it not just because of its age, but also because of the intriguing theory that it may be the actual burial garment of Jesus Christ. Dr. Campbell described how the eminent Protestant theologian John Calvin rejected it as a fake years ago. Calvin's strong disapproval caused most Protestant groups to ignore the shroud, leaving it largely overlooked outside Catholic circles. Dr. Campbell criticized this omission, comparing it to throwing the baby out of the bath water. He argued that the shroud might be authentic, even though many medieval relics were nothing more than money-making scams. He shifted his attention to the findings of a groundbreaking scientific study conducted in 1978. Photographer Vernon Miller's mysterious shot of the shroud showed off amazing features, including the head, eyes, nose, lips, and even traces of blood stains. Researchers identified the stains as human blood, which aligned with torture marks and injuries resembling a crown of thorns on the body. But how did this image come to be? That's the real puzzle, isn't it? Dr. Campbell referred to it as a photographic negative imprinted on a non-photosensitive linen cloth, a phenomenon that seems to be centuries ahead of its time. The artifact's mystery was increased in 1898 when French photographer Seconde Pierre exposed its positive image, revealing a face and intricate features. The mystery surrounding this relic grew as a face appeared for the first time out of the shadows. He linked the shroud to ancient prophecies by referencing Isaiah's depiction of a figure so distorted that it defied human likeness. This description eerily mirrors the bruised and lifeless man depicted on the shroud. The fact that the image contains three-dimensional data, which was first discovered in 1978 through NASA's 3D imaging technology, adds to the mystery. Analysis revealed the body and face features with striking clarity. The shroud is an intriguing mystery to investigate because of this amazing finding, which unites modern science with old scripture, such as the story of Joseph of Arimathea wrapping Jesus in linen. The shroud displays a man's cloth-wrapped body in both frontal and rear views. There are obvious whip marks and bloodstains from a crown of thorns, and tests verify that the blood is human. The image of the shroud, including the encoded negative and three-dimensional details, is still intact, despite considerable damage from a fire in 1590. The man's body exhibits exact anatomical characteristics that are in line with Roman crucifixion techniques, such as nail holes through the wrists. The shroud, the most researched item in history, continues to arouse curiosity and in-depth analysis, despite the unimaginable amount of pain it portrays. When examined more closely, the images show a crucified man with his body scourged, degraded, and bare as Roman custom dictated. There are obvious scourging and crown of thorns marks, as well as shoulder bruises. The fire in 1590 didn't destroy the picture on the shroud, preserving a haunting look at a young, physically fit man. We're able to view these details up close because of high-definition photographs, which show every mark and wound in striking contrast. The story that the Shroud tells is both enthralling and eerie. In the 1978 images, the man on the Shroud had a bloated face, a broken nose, and a portion of his beard plucked out. The image also shows tearing wounds from scourging, bruises that likely resulted from carrying a cross, and injuries to the knees from falls. It displays nail wounds that are consistent with Roman crucifixion, along with an oval wound on his right side. These specifics, such as the flogging described in Matthew and the brain injuries resulting from repeated blows, align with the suffering portrayed in the Gospel narratives. The plucked beard matches Isaiah's prophecy. The figure on the Shroud shows clear signs of Jesus' terrible suffering. There are obvious bruises on the shoulder and the crown of thorns, as described in the scriptures. Jesus bore his cross to Golgotha, according to John's account, and the picture depicts the strain of that great load and the bruises from the effort. The Gospels describe Jesus' frequent falls as he struggled, with Simon of Cyrene helping to bear the cross. The picture also supports the narrative in the scriptures by displaying knee injuries that were probably caused by those falls. The wound on Jesus' right side, which corresponds with Roman crucifixion techniques, is the most remarkable feature. Soldiers punctured his side to verify his death, and the picture shows the water and blood flowing, which aligns with the Gospel's account and confirms physical harm he suffered. To guarantee a kill, soldiers are trained in precise technique. And the Shroud's right side wound demonstrates the common Roman method of confirming death. The Shroud seems to be holding to the echoes of his pain for ages, with each mark telling a tale and each wound representing a chapter of misery. Now it's time to focus on the linen fabric itself. The material's plain weave is visible in the 35mm color transparency that was acquired during the 1978 test. The photograph includes the yellow fibers that are visible just above the surface of the cloth. The image is exceedingly superficial, and these fibers are incredibly small, approximately 0.2 to 0.5 micrometers thick. The image of the Shroud is still unknown. Instead of finding evidence of paint or artistic skills, the 1978 Shroud of Turin research project team found an incredibly realistic anatomical depiction. This image contains obvious pathological signs of torture, and execution is incredibly superficial. The Shroud contains a unique image that's never been seen before. Without any sign of paint or artistic techniques, how could the Shroud have created such a lifelike and anatomically accurate image? In fact, modern technology has failed to duplicate the picture of the Shroud after innumerable tries. The secret is in the discoloration of the fibers. Only the top layers, those that are closest to the body, exhibit any change. These fibers turn white when they're dipped below others. Scientists have attempted to replicate the effect using advanced tools like lasers, but have been unsuccessful. This strengthens the argument that the Shroud is a real, mysterious artifact and casts doubt on the likelihood of a medieval fate. When we examine the Shroud's chest wound closely, we see an old halo effect around the blood. This is the serum that naturally surrounds the red blood cells. The interesting thing is that, in contrast to normal blood, which gradually loses its red color, this blood nevertheless retains it. The high bilirubin concentration in the blood preserves its red color even after 2,000 years. The presence of hemoglobin, human albumin, and antigens unique to human blood confirms its authenticity, providing compelling proof of its validity. Researchers have speculated that the Shroud's blood type might be AB, though this hasn't been confirmed. We can be certain that the blood is human. The Shroud's ability to store three-dimensional information from both the front and the rear is among its most amazing features. With the use of this data, researchers have produced a three-dimensional model of the body that accurately depicts all of its features. The posture speaks volumes. It depicts a body caught in the last moments of life, rigid and still in the eerie embrace of rigor mortis. The Shroud's three-dimensional data shows the body's position on the cross. After crucifixion, they lowered the arms, but the legs slumped and bent under the weight of the body, resting on the bottom nail. It appears as if a pillow was placed behind the head, but it's actually the body stiffening while still on the cross. The Shroud encodes this posture, capturing the exact anatomical and pathological details, graphic as they are, of a body that underwent unspeakable suffering. In 1978, a significant study was carried out, and the findings dismissed the idea that the Shroud could be a painting. Microchemical and X-ray fluorescence studies revealed no signs of pigments, dyes, or stains on the fibers. That is, the image was made without the use of paint. Evaluations in ultraviolet and infrared light, as well as computer-enhanced photos from the VPA image analyzer, verified that the shroud contains distinct three-dimensional data. Microchemical examination found no evidence of oils, spices, or biochemicals created by the body during life or after death. This implies that substances connected to the body did not create the image. However, one thing is certain: the shroud undoubtedly came into physical contact with a living body. Although this contact helps clarify certain details of the torso, it doesn't explain the incredibly detailed, high-resolution image of the face. Photography has consistently captured this image with astonishing clarity. The shroud's picture has been the subject of many theories, but physics and chemistry tests using old linen have repeatedly failed to reproduce the special phenomena it displays. The properties of the image cannot be entirely explained by any known physical or chemical process, even in 2024. Physical, chemical, biological, or medicinal components alone do not provide a satisfactory answer. A quick, intense burst of radiation or light seems to have produced this image, yet it remains a profound mystery. This persistent mystery amplifies the shroud's fascination. How did this remarkable image form? Summing up the findings, the image on the shroud clearly depicts a real human figure, a man who's been scourged and crucified. But how this image was formed still remains a mystery, as it was at the time. One of the most fascinating mysteries in history is still the Shroud of Turin. Many people think that radiocarbon dating is a medieval invention because it was discovered in 1988 and was dated between 1260 and 1390. But as time went on, this conclusion became less certain. Later, researchers found that the examined sample had a combination of modern repair materials and ancient linen, most likely applied during a Middle Ages restoration. Because of this mixing, the average age was incorrect, casting doubt on the initial findings. According to more recent methods, such as X-ray dating, the shroud might actually be from the 1st century, as it matches textiles discovered at historic locations like Masada in Israel. This discovery solidifies its link to the period of Christ. The image itself, a frighteningly accurate portrayal of a man who suffered cruel Roman scourging and crucifixion, adds to the mystery. Pathologists and trauma specialists confirm that the wounds, which include markings from a Roman flagrum, are anatomically and physiologically authentic. No medieval artist could have captured the intensity of sorrow depicted by these nuances. Centuries of research have failed to explain the shroud. How was the picture made? Did a powerful burst of light actually form it, as some have theorized? As the mystery grows, the shroud remains firmly at history, science, and faith. It's impossible to explain the mystery surrounding the Shroud of Turin. Radiocarbon dating initially suggested it was from the medieval era, but sample errors showed it might actually date back to the 1st century. According to forensic experts, the extremely accurate image displays wounds compatible with Roman crucifixion. Mineral evidence, pollen from regions matching its historical path, and dirt from Jerusalem support its known past. Modern science reveals details like its photographic negative and 3D information, which were unthinkable in earlier eras. The shroud continues to evoke awe and wonder, whether created by divine hands or man-made.
Skeptical New Testament scholars like Bart Ehrman.
So again, I find this very, very interesting, fascinating in reality. Certainly, I would have to admit, as would virtually anybody who has studied it, that certainly there's no absolutely conclusive proof that the Shroud of Turin is the actual burial cloth of Jesus Christ. That certainly is conceded. But there is a great deal of circumstantial evidence to support that very, very possibly, if not likely, it is. First of all, the recent dating evidence places it in the 1st century, so in the time and in the place, based on some of the things that we heard in the video relative to soil samples and pollen samples and so forth, that would be consistent of its having its origin in the area of Jerusalem. It is certainly universally agreed that the image on that cloth depicts a man who was severely beaten, including the scourging, as I said, with a whip, a cat o' nine tails style whip, which was what the Romans used for their scourging. Had the wounds on the scalp consistent with a crown of thorns, or some people that have studied it actually indicates it was more like a helmet of thorns covering the whole head, not just like a round thing. Had wounds on the wrists and the feet consistent with the nailing to the cross. The lance wound to the right side, which is again consistent with what we read in the gospel accounts. And then, as the video shared, the blood sampling, that it is human blood, and indicated very, very severe trauma was inflicted upon this particular individual. One of the other interesting things is that this is a burial cloth. Uh, where's the body? Obviously, this is a burial cloth where the body now is missing, so to speak. Surprise, surprise. Obviously, if this was Jesus's cloth, he exited that cloth. He was resurrected. And so, of course, you would have the burial cloth there left by itself. And then finally, that the actual image, it has scientists today cannot recreate it. They can't paint it or use dyes or any known means. Nobody knows how this could possibly have been done, except for the fact that the image on the cloth is a photographic negative, basically. And so the way that it would have been produced is some kind of enormous burst of energy from inside that created that imprinted, so to speak, this image, on the cloth itself. And so obviously, again, this would be consistent with what would have occurred at the resurrection of Jesus Christ, that he exited that cloth with this enormous energy. And that's why there's an image on that cloth. So again, admittedly, it's not 100% conclusive that this is the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. But it certainly could be. It's consistent with what you would expect if you discovered, or had the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. And so it's worth our consideration at the very least. And it's again, if nothing else, we see physical evidence of what a Roman crucifixion was like. And even if it isn't Jesus, we see what Jesus suffered on our behalf. So I hope you found this interesting. There is lots of material out there. One name I'm going to give you is Jeremiah Johnston. He's done some recent videos and works on it. If you want something a little bit more detailed than I was able to give you in this 20 minutes or so, then I would recommend him. But there's lots of material out there, both written and on videos and so forth. So thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll look for the next autumn harvest video.